right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rohit, and it's a pleasure to welcome you all to Shared Future 5.0, our signature virtual panel series where we explore the bold shifts shaping the future of work. Today's discussion, AI workforce forecasting, navigating labor market shifts, dives into one of the most urgent challenges for leaders today, predicting where skills are headed, how roles are evolving, and how AI is reshaping our ability to plan for tomorrow's talent. We're not just talking about hiring faster, we're talking about hiring smarter. But as predictive algorithms enter the boardroom and workforce planning tools begin to outpace human instinct, we must ask, are we leading this transformation or just reacting to it? And how can HR, business, and technology leaders build resilience in a world of constant flux? To unpack all of this, we brought together a phenomenal lineup of experts who aren't just analyzing the change, they're driving it. Starting with our panel members, first, I'd like to welcome Vibhuti Kapoor, Director HRBP at R1 RCM. Hi, Vibhuti.
Hey Rohit, thank you for having me.
Hi. So, Vibhuti has guided everyone from Fortune 500s to fast scaling startups in building emotionally intelligent leaders and AI ready cultures. She helps organizations move from disruption to design. Vibhuti, we're delighted to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you as well. Further, we have Geeta Krishna, Director at Evolent.
Hey. Hello. Hi, Rohit and team Sharedpro.
Hi.
Delighted to be part
With
of this
decades of
panel. Thank you.
experience managing cross border talent strategy and workforce analytics, Geeta brings a rare blend of operational depth and visionary thinking. Her insights on data driven HR are invaluable. Welcome, Geeta.
Thank you, Rohit.
Yeah. And joining them is Sahana Shankar, Head of HR, APAC at DuckCreek Technologies. Okay. Sahana's work focuses on redesigning roles, embedding agility, and making talent strategies truly future proof. Her experience spans sectors and cultures, and her clarity is second to none. Sahana, it's a pleasure to have you with us. I guess she's facing some network issues. Okay, no worries. And steering this conversation is our moderator, Aditya Bhuriya, Strategic Partnerships Lead at Sharedpro. Aditya has been working closely with top enterprises to bridge the gap between AI forecasting and real world talent deployment. The deep understanding of both strategic and execution is the perfect guide for today's dialogue. Aditya, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Rohit. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope, finally we joined. Sana, I hope the StreamYard works for you. I'll just start. Welcome to our panel on AI workforce forecasting, navigating labor market shifts. I am Aditya, and I'll be your moderator for today. I'm joined by three amazing leaders, Geeta, Vibhuti, and Sahana, who have each worked at the intersection of people, technology, and change. We all know the way we work is changing fast. Roles are evolving, skills are shifting, and AI is now helping us make smarter workforce decisions, not in the future, but right now. So, today, we'll explore how AI is helping us rethink planning, hiring, partnerships, and maybe even what work itself means. Let's jump right in. I'll start by asking each one of you one question at a time. I hope that works. We'll start with Vibhuti. Vibhuti, you have led leadership development initiatives across diverse sectors, from startups to mature enterprises. Question for you: given your experience, how do you envision AI helping HR leaders identify and prepare future ready roles, especially in industries where job definitions are constantly evolving?
Wonderful question, and I think very pertinent and difficult. So, in in true sense, AI is our reality. Look at the way our algorithms work. Your YouTube playlist to your Netflix recommendations, everything is running on AI, right? So it is table stakes. Everybody is expected to play along. And I think three things that I see will be needed in future leaders are softer, right? Job skills can be taught. 20 years and I have learned that one big lesson. One, the the pace at which technology changes, role changes, industry changes at the same pace, if not more, one needs to absorb the change and like get going. It's like you're teaching AI and bot how to respond to every input. I think humans are expected to do that, especially in leadership roles. If you're not chugging along, like we like to say in American expression, you will not be fit for purpose in any role, let alone technology role, which is the driving seat holder. So that becomes one, right? Ability to absorb, respond, react, act. That speed of change is needed in our way of working. Second is AI is not made you, you've made AI, right? So using it to your advantage is another skill. So I was listening to the podcast of Mr. Kamath and the Netflix CEO, and the conversation was so beautiful where the Netflix CEO said, we know what we want to use technology for as leaders in Netflix. And that is one thing that everybody will need to know. No matter how many platforms come in the market, Netflix still is the best because they think about what do I do more of with AI, where I can reduce my time investment to get more value. I think that's the way to use AI, and I think that is very, very important. And I was thinking, and in preparation for the talk today, I don't think people take AI very seriously when you talk about it in the sense of what's it going to do. The one skill that I think every leader will need is what it cannot do. Let me learn that. That mindset switch, right? It's like reversing the switch. That's the third thing, which is the softest and cannot be taught in schools and colleges, but I think should be spoken of very democratically. Like we talk about Netflix subscription, I think this is one thing we should talk about more of. What it cannot do, let me do more. Let me build my muscle around that. So, yeah.
You're on
Aditya,
mute, Aditya.
That was great. Good example about Netflix. I mean, even this got to my mind. So it reminds me of how even, I mean, I read about it as well. How Unilever redefined roles after I guess post pandemic by using AI to analyze the emerging micro skills rather than just fixing their job titles. So, I mean, this just made the workforce planning like much more fluid. I mean, there are many examples like this. Netflix and Unilever, just two of them. Um, let's move to the next question. Next turn, Geeta. So, Geeta, your work in building scalable digital HR strategies gives you a unique vantage point in enterprise scale workforce challenges. Question for you. How do you see AI reshaping workforce supply demand balancing in large enterprises over the next 3 to 5 years?
So thank you for that question. Again, very, very interesting questions that have lined up for us. So, so one thing I would like to say here is that many a times we solve problems with what has been done in the past. Okay, that is a mindset issue. For instance, if we transition from Nokia, the Nokia phones, those big phones, to the touch phones, Apple did not think in the same way. They did not want to replicate the same features of a Nokia on the touch phone. They made it into a television, everything. Now today, it is not on your phone, it's become your personal computer, right? You have all your data, everything, and everything is on cloud. So they radicalized it. They radically transformed it. Now that is the issue with AI and labor demand supply. Today, what we are doing is we are using the same set of, like we are saying that, okay, oh, this company, we always hire engineers. So let's hire engineers. AI, tell me, how do I hire engineers? Like Vibhuti said, The soft skills cannot be taught, but inherently, what we are doing is, at one time, we used engineers because computers were new, right? I'm a Gen X, right? I'm a Gen Xer. So I'm telling you, I came from the era where I set my feet into the IT world when computerization was new, in the 90s, when people were just learning. People did not have a desktop even at their homes. So then there was a need to hire engineers so that people would be computer savvy. But companies are traditionally still keeping engineering as an entry point for many roles that it doesn't require engineering skills. So what is happening is the data sets that we are feeding into the AI are still outdated. We have to look at the fact that to do this job, what are the ability I need? I need someone quick thinking, somebody who can, if it's a call center, then I need to look at how well the person can answer and comprehend and figure out a way to answer and mitigate the solution. A problem solver and someone who can ask and facilitate conversation. Now, that is a skill that doesn't require a degree. It's a capability. And, so the point is that we are all part of the same value chain, from the schools, colleges, workforce. So when we look at AI implementation, when we look at the entire scheme of things that is going to completely turn around its head. So the data that we are feeding can be even something like, can I take a school graduate? Can I take someone in the 8th grade to do this job? And the minute we do that, we will see opportunities blooming, because down in the villages, down in many places, there are people who are talented, skilled, who are waiting to find an opportunity. And we just are not able to tap that because we are trying to do new things with old tools. And that is what I think is the biggest problem. And I'd like to, take the point from what Vibhuti said, is soft skills take a longer time to train people in, whereas hard skills are something which are so dynamic, ever changing, can be done within no time. It doesn't require much investment in part of organizations. So coming back to your question of big organizations doing a demand fulfillment, they have to look at changing adding more parameters. Even when you're predicting how talent is going to shape up, what are the demands going to be, all of that can be easily fed in the algorithm. Your AI can pick up data sets from crazy places and give you very effective and efficient answers. But again, what do we feed it? Do we feed the same set of limitations? Like, are we trying to make an Apple phone work like a Nokia? So that is what we are doing, which is not helping us move forward. And so that is where we can meet the demand, is by thinking in a different way, thinking in terms of how can we identify skills, not jobs. So job descriptions are outdated, is what I still maintain. Job descriptions are, once you write and paste it, we are human beings and we keep evolving, and we can no longer, it's not what I do today, this year, next year I'm a different capability. So it's a moving target. So we have to find a new way, new method, transform into new ways of defining and meeting the demand in a supply gap.
And Aditya, I'll take the liberty of adding another bit to Geeta's point. She made a fabulous point on feeding outdated information into systems, processes, people, and expect different outcome. So I think I'll give you an example of a colleague whose kid is 6-7-year-old in the school. They're talking about 7 habits. So it needs to be of that kind. Now, I'm saying this is a school who's made the change in the curriculum, and a 7-year-old is talking about 7 habits of being effective leader, effective person, communicator. Now, that needs to go into education system to find homes. And let me bring another starkly opposite example. One of my mentees has taken AI as a specialization in engineering. She's a 3rd-year student. Whatever they talk in college in AI and ML curriculum, and I sit in board of education, by the way, for 2 colleges, so I can tell you, the reality is very, very far from what we expect people to deliver on the ground. So unless I break my pattern of what I have taught, how I think it is serving or not serving is another conversation altogether. And I'm not saying we can solve for world hunger sitting here predicting talent models, but the change needs to happen at some point, and this needs to get democratized and talked about. You want your daughter or son or your child to become an engineer and make a good living, but what are you doing about it? The ones who have the education and awareness, I think that becomes a very good conversation starter of another kind, which leads to positive impact. And then you talk about talent readiness in future. So it needs to be, like I keep saying this, right, like a broken record, more democratized, more spoken of. What is important to be successful as a person? Secondary pieces are AI, technology, and future then. So just a different perspective.
No, that was beautiful. Thank you, Geeta. It was amazing. I mean, I really believe it. We should be dynamic enough now and like know what to delegate to AI and just not depend on it. It's a the clear scenario that you mentioned about Nokia, iPhone.
Yeah.
I mean, it was great. And coming to Vibhuti as well, thank you for adding a good point. I mean, it's a clear call for alignment, between the education and industry needs and the future of work as well. I mean, thank you for spotlighting that. I mean, let's move to our next question. I hope Sahana, it works for you now. So the next question would be for you. So Sahana, you sit at the intersection of analytics and people strategy, which makes your perspective invaluable. Question: in your experience with AI forecasting models, how do you ensure they don't overfit to historical data and instead remain adaptive to rapidly evolving workforce dynamics? And you hear us?
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you. Yes, Sahana. Yes, we can hear you.
Am I audible? I am not able to.
Yes.
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah, apologies if technical glitch. This is something that always takes us by surprise. So yeah, thanks for that question. I would probably say that, AI forecasting models still remain extremely relevant, especially while we still know that it's a very fast changing workforce dynamics. But I think to ensure that they don't overfit the past data, I think there are few recommendations that I can make from a people analytics lens. One, of course, is overfitting happens when models rely too heavily on a past behavior. Let me take an example here. I think post COVID, a lot of things have changed, right? Now, if we had to take anything as a parameter considering a pre-COVID era, I think that's when we say that maybe historical patterns may not hold relevance. And hence, in terms of a forward-looking, what organizations do is to look at, a past data plus add that with, an employee sentiment. It could be an engagement pulse scores. So I think that's the way to look at, negating just like a overfitting of past data. For example, an attrition model that we're looking at, right, needs to incorporate changes that has happened post COVID. One of the other things that I want to talk about is in terms of the rolling windows for workforce trends. A lot of organizations look at data like quarter on quarter, but it's equally important that we keep refreshing these models quarterly. Now, for example, if an organization today is completely remote, then if a model has been built considering a pre-pandemic era where probably long commute was a key attrition factor, that today may not be an applicable factor for an organization which is completely remote. So, what I intend to say is that organizations need to keep evolving with data. While it's always good to keep some historical data with you, one of the areas that we use extensively is to look at predictive models for promotion. Now, in last few years, since careers have been very, very fungible, how have career models evolved? While some of the old data, old metrics still remains relevant, but adding in certain new factors depending on the cultural shifts that an organization has had becomes very, very critical. And with AI coming into the workforce, I always say that build in your prediction it's always great, but don't forget to keep the business context. I think at the end of the day, we all need to ensure that the business context still continues to be on the spotlight while we keep building some amazing predictive models. That's my thought.
Great point, Sahana. I mean, absolutely. I believe that the forecasting must be living and iterative, like not once and done. I mean, glad that you put this forward. I mean, coming to the remote thing that you said, even I read it somewhere that it takes around 59 minutes for an employee to travel, to commute, and like it takes around 500 hours a year, something like that. Like these were the data collected in the past, and I'm sure that you might have even saw that on LinkedIn somewhere. But yeah, good point.
Absolutely.
We
To add a little bit,
Organizations are
Aditya,
also.
sorry. Yes, Sahana, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking that a lot of companies have put in, good amount of, guardrails. Primarily with AI, what happens, it's all historical data. Very, very consciously, organizations have to prevent any kind of a bias that comes in. So I think that's also very critical. So a lot of organizations still continue to do a lot of audits, even with the data that AI gives in, just to ensure that it's always good to have historical data, but ensure on ground sentiments that an HR business partner collects, correlate that data, try to identify if they're partners, audit the data. I think those are some of the practices that organizations have put in place.
I wanted to add a point here to Sahana, what she mentioned. The other important thing is, like, I come from a remote first workplace where we work largely we work remote. This is also my home, right? So the thing is, working remote, I say it's like, if two prisoners in adjacent jails, right? They have to talk to each other. You can't really see. So you tap on the wall and the other person listens and they get to know. So the whole thing is feedback. What I'm trying to say here is feedback. A lot of our systems and processes don't talk to one another. So, for example, how to stay in context is, for instance, what if my work, whatever work is given to me in a job, right? There is a way of continually monitoring and getting data points, both from the employee and the people with the ecosystem. For instance, if I work in a project and I'm a project manager and I work with multiple people, then project manager gets feedback from the people that how they were supported, and the project manager can talk about challenge and if this data is fed, and what soft skills were exhibited, what were demonstrated, where it could have gone better. If that data is fed throughout the year, so not only will it address our training or any skills development, it will also address your fact that which role is this person getting ready for today. So what is happening is we don't have a continually monitoring processes with us. Therefore, the data is always last year's, or we look at, historic data. But if the data is continually monitored, continuously, everything that happens in an employee's life, if that was captured real time, we will get a very different picture. A more prescriptive modeling rather than just predictive modeling, which will be more in sync with what is happening rather than what happened in the past.
Yeah. And I agree with Geeta, right? As a business partner leader, which has been my major part of role, like half life of my career has been that. Today, the things are changing, right? With tools like Workday, where you could integrate skills, capability, feedback that comes, talent conversations that come, I still don't think we are at a point in industry and the HR space where we've integrated all of this and it is throwing patterns or readiness indicators, right? I would love for technology to do that, AI to do that. It's like this, right? Again, I'm going back to the comment I made about Netflix. Netflix did not start the way they started. They said, we want to become digital, so our reach is higher, we make more money. And they're a technology company. They feed in technology. They don't talk about profit because they know their business model is good. What they do really well is they integrate feedback. So in the reference of this conversation, if you look at Netflix ticketing system, it's a study, by the way, in HBR. Netflix ticketing system feeds into feedback of how algorithm is designing the solution and recommendation for movies, let's say. That's how real-time talent needs to get. Correct? Readiness, to Sahana's point. But forget about that far. We are right now dealing with our own fears of AI is better than me and I don't know what to do. So the mindset switch needs to happen sooner than later. And then you bring conversations together and say, quarterly performance is this, my peer feedback is this, team feedback is this, talent feedback is this. Now let's talk about where am I supposed to go? And as a result, what is happening, you will see the big fours and the consulting firms and the boutique firms continuously fill that gap, which is a good thing. Everybody needs to, pay for their bills and feed their stomach and families. But that's, I think, where the future will go. The elevation of this conversation will no longer be about filling the gap. It will be about, you identified the gap, I filled the gap, now there's a new gap. Let's talk about the new one that is going to come and let's feed it. I think we are on that race, but slow.
Very slow. Yeah.
And I think what I
we have very monolithic systems. If I talk about Workday, sorry, Sahana.
No, I was just saying, since we spoke about feedback, I think Microsoft has a Viva Insights, and the kind of real-time feedback that it gives, I have seen employees, managers, and including teams' productivity go up. And I think that's exactly what AI can do, which probably humans cannot. We cannot be giving you a real-time feedback on your productivity, on your mental well-being, how many meetings you're on time, is your team collaborating outside of co-working hours, how many hours is that? I think we need to start looking at AI coming in with real-time feedback, while probably humans still continue to give feedback more from an emotional perspective. Certain things probably AI can't. I can read a room, I can sense emotions. I think those that humans, HRBPs need to bring into workforce.
Yeah. And I'm reminded, Aditya, I know we are taking a longer one on this one.
No problem.
4 years ago, I think more than that, when Tech Mahindra launched their swipe card sentiment experience, you could use an emoji when you swipe your card on how is your mood when you enter. When you swipe out, there's going to be again emoji, like 5 or 7. And that used to be a daily report. Imagine department heads got daily sentiment report. This was one of its kind when it was launched in TechM. And thereafter, Lina AI was born during COVID. Lina AI was trained to read patterns of feedback with only sentiment analysis. That was the first cut of Lina, because I worked with them in my past life. I know, while I didn't implement it, that is how fast the talent piece or readiness piece needs to be, like all put together. While Lina AI is not meant to do that job, but imagine the future, right? To the question you asked Geeta and to Sahana, if Lina AI was to give you daily dump or the sentiment dump, you marry that with rating, talent, peer feedback, customer feedback, or team feedback. That's the recipe. That's the recipe. Using AI, you can make pattern of what is sticking, what's working, and what's not working, what to eliminate or what to watch out for. And at that length and breadth, you will need to switch HR policies, programs, systems, frameworks, and things like that. I think that's the space and pace both. Eventually, that will look like.
Yeah. Absolutely. Even our HRMS, for that Workday you mentioned, many of them are monolithic. They are sitting, they are like cupboards, In that cupboard, you just stored some stuff, right? And you pull out, and the data will be as you have kept it inside the cupboard. That's not what we need. We need something which is continuously monitoring, continuously tracking everything that is happening, work-wise, conversations-wise, identifying where. So, for example, if a team member completes making a PPT, immediately somebody should give a feedback on it. Everybody gives feedback on it, whoever is using it. Then immediately you get to know how was the PPT made, was it good, did it meet the requirement. So that gives a real-time feedback to the employee. So I'm sitting in a jail called work, and then I get to know real-time what's happening, who's listening to me, who I can go to for what. Even mentoring is a big issue, but that's another conversation for another day. But yeah.
Great points, everyone. I mean, I really agree. The real-time sentiment data, whatever we feed, could be really useful. As Vibhuti mentioned, it could be the best final dish that we could get. Agree on that. I mean, I've seen tools as well, which like just measure your sentiment data just by looking at your face these days. So that's something that's coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's reality. Let's be honest.
Yes. I mean, yes, it is. Okay, let's not waste a minute more. I'm just gonna go to the next question and we can continue. It's okay. We still have, I don't know, 30 minutes. We have a lot of time. Yeah. Vibhuti, for you. So when you are guiding organizations through cultural transformations, how do you balance the precision of AI-derived insights with more intangible human nuances that often resist quantification in workforce planning?
Long ass question, right? But let's break it down into three big chunks. So as you talk about culture transformation, it goes to my first point. How are you measuring the person's fitment, right? When you've defined the baseline, my culture says somebody who comes into this organization needs to remain ethic, needs to remain customer-centric, and needs to respect as a baseline. Then my insights will tell me, here is the sentiment analysis of whatever feedback I got so far. This person is demonstrating most occasions. This person is not demonstrating at all. And when I go back and look at the sentiments myself, and I do that, by the way, I can be very, very specific where I will go read feedback comments wherever there is red sentiment or green sentiment, and I know this person needs to improve on certain elements, right? So AI thrown data needs to be validated by whatever the size of that organization is, what is the purpose of that business, and is the purpose met or not. Then comes my part of, do I want to grow this business? Yes. If I want to grow this business with this person or without this person. So I think it becomes very clear, given your culture is your guiding principle. It's like a lighthouse, right? In the middle of the ocean, you know what are non-negotiables of the organization and for the role. I think that becomes very clear. Second, in the event, let's say, not every organization has the liberty of saying, oh, this doesn't fit my bill, thank you very much, you can go. It doesn't work that way. Let's be real. It doesn't have to be that way. What interventions do you have in place? If you were to do cultural transformation, you will also need to enable that person. While you expect that you bring 10 things, but if you have 8, 2 I will help you develop, right? If tomorrow the 10 list changes, I should be able to live up to the occasion and say, here are 3 things I will do, 2 things you need to put, and let's move forward. I think having that conversation is very important. To the points me, Geeta, and Sahana, we're all sharing, as much as feedback needs to be real on what needs to improve, at the same pace, we need to provide interventions as well. So it will start making business sense on culture pieces, because it's not just about what is delivered, it becomes how it was delivered. So I make this reference from my past life, and I love this leader to the core. I managed an inbound and outbound both call center in my earlier life with the bank. And people were trying to sell but not able to sell, and some people were getting feedback, long AHTs. And this leader said, I'm going to get 300 mirrors glued on every workstation. When you're talking to a customer, please look at yourself. So I think your AI sentiment or feedback, which is nuanced in some way, it needs to work like a mirror. That when you look at this, it tells you something is off or something is right, what needs to start, stop, continue. I think that's how I think of AI-driven inputs or pieces on what it will need to do for me tomorrow. without getting too dependent on old data. But what I see today, like for example, we do monthly surveys. We don't look at quarterly surveys or yearly surveys because it's dated information. It won't help, right? So I think that's relevant in the world that we're talking about with AI.
Great points by our culture champion. Yeah. I mean, definitely, you're right. I mean, growth doesn't always mean replacement. It often means intervention, support, whatever you need.
Yeah.
Let's move to our next question, Geeta. So, building on that, so how should organizations reimagine their talent pipelines and skill inventories now that AI can forecast labor gaps before they can even surface?
Okay. Now, here is something which I've been kind of contemplating, right? Skills, okay, skills. So I have worked in the competency mapping and the skills space for decades, right? Now, I can tell you one thing, that we are solving the problem incorrect. What are we trying to do? We want an integrated view of talent. So if I have an employee, okay, let's say Aditya is employee. Today I want to know Aditya, what is his skills, what has been his job history, how many years has he been there, what are the skills he has had in the past as well. So any skill spotting system, mapping system only picks up your current role and what you did today. Whereas I am a walking, talking example, or any of us, we carry our previous experiences, our previous, what we did in college, everything, we carry that whole persona with us, right? So whenever we hire people, we are not hiring a resource, we are hiring a persona with everything, right? So today what is happening is we are trying to freeze frame and say, everybody freeze frame, similar to what Vibhuti said about employee sentiment. Same way, skills, you try to capture skills, you do this big elaborate exercise, you have a fancy tool, and then you get everybody to say, today I know this much and whatever. And after that, by the time you analyze, the person has moved, their skills are already, they have moved in the capability index. Not only that, the ground in which they're standing, that is also shaking, because company says, oh, we no longer want this skill, we want something new. So how do we, so this is conundrum is going to be there because of the way we are solving the problem. We are imagining everything is static pieces, whereas it's not a static pieces. So it's like saying that there's a car driving and I want to know where is it today. At this time, where is this car standing? And if I were to take the latitude, longitude of the earth and fix the spot where the car has already moved, right? So all our talent skill identification systems are like that. They are not really in context. Whereas what did GPS do? GPS, or the global positioning system, real time, it tracked the car moving and it tells you at any point real time coordinates of something, right? We need a talent positioning system, right? TPS or whatever you may call it, or skills positioning system. The thing is, we need, again, feedback and constant data monitoring, getting data. Now, where do you get data of skills from? It's not from training, because training only gives you a familiarity. It is actually the workplace, how you have deployed the skills. So again and again, I'm coming back to performance management. Cannot be about, okay, you were told these things, what did you do after 1 year? Whereas on a daily basis, we're getting new stuff to do. So how about every activity that I do, whatever I work, I perform for the company, there's a real-time monitoring and it's tracked, they're saying what all I did. So end of the year, there's actually a map and a chart of what all I did, what all stakeholders I worked with, what all skills I demonstrated, what behaviors I demonstrated, how close I was to the core values of the organization. So this gives a complete mapping of the employee, right? And then when you want to find a new role and you want to identify, saying that, oh, there is this position is empty. Again, we are trying to fill a person there. We're not trying to fill a skill. And then this, if all this data is captured, because for AI, data is king. Data is the fuel on which AI runs, AI analytics, everything runs on data. So the more data points and the more diverse data points we are able to feed in, then we get an accurate, or not accurate, but at least more realistic portrayal of integrated view of talent. This is the employee today. This employees come with so many years of experience. So they actually carry all these skills with them. capability. So we have this high profile job, who's the right person for it, and you define the job not like a job description, but in terms of what situations will this job undergo, what capabilities it needs, and it will give you examples of people you never thought of. These are the people based on your requirement. These are the right people. So that is what we require today. We cannot use the current skill mapping systems because they are, again, very static and very one dimensional.
And Aditya, my temptation is for real. Geeta's comments, I wish Workday is listening, and I really hope they listen, because I do know of Skill Cloud. Geeta, I'm sure you've read and
Yes, I've seen that.
Skill Cloud, but Skill Cloud, the input also is stale, right? If Skill Cloud work like an AI agent within Workday, it will make a world difference. And then somebody would argue, no, it depends on data input quality from TA, from this, from that. But well, use what you have in the system at least first, right? And then come back and complain that, it doesn't work or it works. I think that's one. Second, the ways solutions are, the existing solutions, right? The existing solutions, institutions, organizations, I don't think they're offering anything unique. And the ones that are offering unique are getting replaced. And I will bring a classic example without telling names. First Advantage has been the biggest name to do background verifications. All of us know First Advantage. We have been part of the journey. We've implemented, given feedback, worked with them, and things like that. Now there's a player in the market. They do BG check in 6 hours. They do, I swear to God, they work like a wallet. They do it in 6 hours. The report is going to be available in 12 hours. That's what the power of AI is. And that's we say, right, God's speed in English, again, an expression. That's how it needs to work. Otherwise, we will always be, trying to put a band-aid where it needs a surgery. And the surgery requires money, it requires being uncomfortable, being, called out, which nobody likes, unfortunately.
True that. I mean, I guess the skill cloud that you were talking about, I had the same thing in mind. It's being offered by TCS, correct? I'm not wrong. I mean, I heard that it continuously maps the capabilities of its employees projected, like on the business needs. So the hiring and the upskilling process is proactive. Like it's not just responsive; it's proactive. Yeah, I mean, one last question for Sahana. So you have always led major transformation projects. How have AI-driven insights changed the way HR business partners collaborate with business units on capacity planning or restructuring decisions?
I think Sahana got dropped. I think technology challenge.
Let me give it a quick check.
Sure.
Sorry about that, guys. I guess that was just a hard stop for Sahana. She had to leave at 2:50. I promised her that it wouldn't go that long, but it did. And I mean, that's great. Yeah.
Good problem to have. I can take a stab at that question, Aditya, if you don't mind.
Sure. No problem.
VP temptations are real.
Okay, sure. Okay, so it was about, so how have AI-driven insights changed the way HR business partners collaborate with business units on capacity planning or restructuring decisions?
we've been talking about this in the last 2 weeks in my role. So I was talking about the AI sentiment analysis and feedback, right? So I think that is a very good segue to think about it. So feedback will give you indication, like the mirror effect, like the call center reference I was making. Geeta is nodding his, and I know she can relate to the sentiment I'm coming from. It gets you to ask good, difficult, meaningful questions. I think the capacity planning is not the only space where it helps. I think it helps talk about, is this person ready for the tomorrow version of this organization? Because some indications you have, you know what will stick, what will remain with you. And those are the softer things. Like, for example, the how of giving feedback, how of having difficult conversation. That doesn't go away no matter which version of AI comes and what happens. You will use AI to maybe make it sound softer, more professional, like we do the ChatGPT and stuff like that today, right? But it will not go away. So I think those indicators tell me my conversation needs to remain on a certain tangent. The tangent could be my behavioral expectations. The tangent is when you hire people with transferable skills. To Geeta's point, the way we do input, like entry into system as an organization, nobody thought we will need to hire people who will have, let's say, problem solving mindset. But it is mandatory today. If you don't have somebody who can solve that problem, what happens when the work goes away? A certain work kind goes away. You will need that person to scale up and do more. So I think that's the second thing that happens, right? What is the skill set for tomorrow? Not just at a leadership level, at like entry role level as well. That impacts my cost, that impacts my retention rates, that impacts my customer success in the end. And I don't think we have answers for everything, but yeah, could we have answer for next 2 to 3 years? Oh yes. I can tell you the roles, I have managed in my past life. Now I've done work for 21 years and I'm going back to what I did 11 years ago. It's no longer same. So the caller's expectations are different. So I worked for a bank, I worked for a healthcare firm, and I'm back at healthcare now. And I've worked for a retailer, built the GCC and all that, right? So when somebody makes a call, the expectations from the call have changed. Imagine the bottom where you're touching the full cycle of a product or an experience or a service, that has changed. So it will have an upstream impact and comes back to same circle, transferable skills. So you could get expensive people, smart people, and it will make more sense versus getting cheaper talent. So the cost arbitrage conversation evolves into take 10 rupees more, but give me better experience, right? So it's like, I know I'm giving another example, which is out of this context, but think about why somebody wants to go to Tim Hortons versus go to a cafe coffee day. It's the experience of the lounge, the scenery, the packaging versus cafe coffee day, where, I grew up, my MBA days, I survived on that coffee and I still love the coffee. And I still cannot believe I have to go to Tim Hortons just because somebody said it's nice. So I think that's a differentiator, right? We call it the white glove treatment, the business class treatment. I think that's becoming normal. So then you push your boundaries forward on cost planning for your workforce and what will stick in the near future,
Absolutely, Vibhuti. Geeta, do you want to add something to it before we wrap?
Yeah, sure. So the last points is when we talk about using insights as a talent partner, right? As a HR business partner. Now, very important thing is a HR business partner is supposed to be the ears and the eyes of the employees, right? They're supposed to be the ones who the employee go to when they have a problem or something. Likewise, they are the people who advise. We are advisors to the key leaders, and we give them sound business logic. We tell them that, hey, you want to do this, but ideally this will be a problem, right? Now the challenge is when we hire, we are very short-term thinking as an organization. When we hire people, we hire them thinking they'll only be doing this role. We don't look at scalability of roles, right? We don't define scalability. Again, like she mentioned, Vibhuti mentioned cycle, right? Being part of GCCs, we all know there is a cycle. After 5 years, there's a slump. There's a stagnation. right? It's all hunky-dory, lovely, up to it reaches 5-6 years, and then there's going to be a flat line, right? And then what happens to all the topmost, senior-most staff in the GCC, right? They hit the glass ceiling or whatever you want to call it. That happens, right? That is a reality we all know. But still, that is never taken into account by GCCs when they are growing. They don't warrant for that stagnation or that stable pulse, which will take place after some time. And then how do you become a different value add partner to the US? Now that's a GCC, but I'm talking about any organization has to go. For example, there are IT service companies. They were mainly they used to be more like body shoppers. They used to just send their resources, staff augmentation, right, for various companies. But that model is no longer working because organizations are building their own stuff internally. So that business model is not working. So now they're thinking, okay, now where should we get it? But they should be able to predict it beforehand. So what I'm trying to say here is about when we talk of change management or coming up with any transformative practices and using HR business partners for it, it is also the organization has to make sure that it understands that there will always be a cycle. So do we need more resilient players? What type of players we need today, and what players we're okay with, if they're not going to perform, eventually there will be some kind of weeding out there. But more or less, this fact, it has to be factored in that what is today is not going to be tomorrow, and that long thinking approach has to be there whenever we have any insights or any planning, for that matter.
And I'll just add a beautiful expression I have heard of, right? And I'm just bringing another analogy. A lot of times, to Geeta's point, organizations are not ready. And when organizations are ready, leaders are not ready. Let's be honest. See, BPs will do their job, organization will do their job, the sponsorship will do their job, but the person is not able to do the job, right? Then you have to be okay in saying some will do keeping the lights open kind of work, keep the engine running, and there are going to be some disruptors. Again, the 80-20 principle in my head makes a lot of sense, right? So if you have 20% disruptors in your bench, or you think of this bench as 10 people I will need to have in this bench, which is what Citi used to do. So when Citi hired from campus, and this is what I've heard from my leader, Citi would hire from campus with the vision that they should take the corner office, which is the CEO's office. Some of those need to happen today, also leveraging what we have. AI technology, models, feedback systems. I think, I say this, right? We go back to Flintstone is a very beautiful cartoon that comes to my mind in this analogy. Think of it, right? You've gone back to Stone Age. We're talking conversations like Business 101, just because the change speed and our response has not been the same. And that is the reality. If that is something we accept and we move forward from there, it becomes very easy. Yeah. Otherwise, you're going to feel stuck. You're just always going to feel stuck in that space. Oh my God, AI is going to take my jobs. No, heaven's sakes, no. It'll make your job easy. Your job will change. It'll no longer look the same. You're not going to lift the stone by hand. You will have a crane to lift the stone. In the Flintstones analogy that I was trying to give. So, yeah.
Agreed. I mean, it's just that we need to know how well to use AI and not just be afraid of it. Sure. I guess we're on time. Great talking to you. Thank you, Vibhuti. Thank you, Geeta. Sahana's not here, but I hope she sees the recorded session as well. So thank you, Sahana, as well. Thank you all for sparking such a meaningful exchange. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, Rohit. You could take this forward. You can wrap this up.
Okay. That was a really thought-provoking session, and everyone's opinions and views has truly captured the urgency and opportunity in shaping a future-ready workforce. A huge thank you to you, Vibhuti and Geeta, and Sahana as well. Unfortunately, she had to leave due to her network issues, but nonetheless, thank you all for your powerful insights, and to Aditya for moderating this conversation with such clarity and purpose. We once again thank you all for joining us and being part of this wonderful session. We look forward to welcoming you again at the next edition of Shared Future.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.